Hi, I want to go over Love and Prophecy by Dan McCollam. This is prophecy is not self-seeking. Prophecy is never centered on self. It should always be centered on a person being ministered to and God's love for them. In any given appointment and daily life, I am created to be an expression of God's love. Two vital components of love are compassion and mercy. There is a huge difference between compassion and mercy that are important to the subject of prophecy. Mercy moves down from a higher position to move someone in their pain and suffering. Compassion lifts a person up from a low position to reveal God's best in the situation. Mercy brought God down from his throne in heaven to live as a human in the earth. Compassion lifted man out of his fallen state to partake of the divine nature and seat him in heavenly places in Christ Jesus. So the author, Dan McCollam, says, here's how this difference applies to prophecy. He says, in the past, I often let my mercy mix with my prophetic words. I would let what I personally felt for the person influence what I spoke over them prophetically, because God speaks to my heart and the emotions were flowing from my heart. I confused my emotions as the voice of God. I unknowingly spoke my heart over them as if it was a word from the Lord. So how do you prevent your emotions from influencing the prophetic word? This is where protocol is helpful. We must be willing to recuse ourselves when asked to prophesy in a place where we have preconceived ideas or a previous heart connection with the receiver. Recuse is a judicial term for when a judge, prosecutor, or a juror is deemed unqualified to perform legal duties because of the potential conflict of interest or a lack of impartiality. I think this term can serve as a great protocol tool for the prophetic. The author, Dan McCollam, says, friends or people in my congregation often ask me for a prophetic word when they are thinking about moving or changing jobs. Here's my problem. If the change in direction will take them away from our community, then I don't in my heart want them to move. I truly desire what is best for that person, but I'm conflicted through my own self-interest. Can I hear through my own opinion? Of course I can, but it's tricky dividing between your soul and your spirit. It's better to recuse myself. The author also says chances are that if I know this person well, I already have a personal opinion on the situation they are inquiring about. In these cases, I might be tempted to prophesy something that is colored with my own opinions or self-interest. I can't give purely impartial input. God's perceptions often come to the heart, but the heart is also the realm of my soul. It's easy to think that an impression in my heart is the voice of God, since that is a familiar meeting place for us. The author says, we train our team members to expect that their impressions are most likely from God because we have surrendered our lives to Him. Yet love's protocol trumps over principle. He also says, I believe in extracting myself from these types of prophetic requests. If someone asks me for a prophetic word where I have a vested interest in the outcome, then it is my policy to reply, I think I am too close to the situation to be objective. I would be happy to give you my counsel and my prayers, but I don't think I can give you a clean prophetic word on this issue. I don't leave them without prophetic input. I try to find someone who doesn't know them as well as I do to give them a more directional word. The author also says, I have personally witnessed meetings where people have prophesied from the pulpit that a certain person in the congregation was to leave what they were doing and to come be a part of their business or ministry. The speaker has a personal interest in the outcome, and they are using their position and authority from the pulpit to influence the course of another person's life. It is a violation of love's protocol. The speaker should have gone to the senior leader first and shared what they were sensing. Then the speaker should talk to the person individually and not in front of a whole crowd. The same protocol is true in any line of employment. You don't use the prophetic to draw someone away to your business out of self-interest. That is manipulation, which is a form of witchcraft. Using the spiritual realm to control people for your personal benefit can be a form of witchcraft. The author says, this is where people have gone wrong in the past with directive prophetic words. I shared in my book, he says, Prophetic Company, that's the name of his book, about my mother's friend who received a prophecy about whom she should marry. Wanting to please God, she married this man whom she did not love or choose. The marriage failed, and she lived the rest of her life alone. If someone tells you in a prophetic word that you are supposed to marry them, run for your life, because prophecy is not self-seeking. The author says sometimes we can violate this protocol through a good intention. My heart beats for people who long to be married or long to have a baby. I love them so much and want them to have the desires of their hearts. In my earlier days, I would sometimes give a prophetic encouragement along the lines of, I feel like your mate is coming. Those words never turned out well for either of us. For me, they were embarrassingly unfulfilled. For the receiver, it was much worse. The receiver had to wrestle with hope deferred, their confidence in the prophetic, and sometimes their trust in God himself. That's why we must be so careful when self-interest or preconceived ideas are involved. The author also says it was too difficult to separate what I desired for them and what God was actually saying. My want is a wish. My opinions are better expressed as a prayer or a blessing. My desire should not shape my prophetic words, because prophecy is not self-seeking. Love's protocol requires me to refrain from giving directional words when I have a personal connection to the outcome. The author says another way that self can enter a prophetic word is when we project what we are going through onto someone else. The author says, in my book that's called Prophetic Company, I share the story about a lovely team member who prophesied over my wife and me that we would be given a house debt-free. The woman is a powerful lady of prayer and worship who possesses a true prophetic gift. The idea of debt-free house resonated with the heart of my wife and me, since that has been a dream of ours for many years. He also says, a few months went by and I was doing a little quality control inspection, just listening in on our team members as they ministered prophetically to people. I overheard that same lady giving a similar word to someone else. That's interesting, I thought to myself. But prophetic words are not exclusive. I've seen people grab a hold of a grace that was on someone else's word and apply it to their own lives in much the same way that we would do with scriptures that were not exclusively written to us or our situation. I don't believe that giving two people a similar word is an abuse of prophecy. Perhaps the same grace was resting on these folks, so I dismissed it and moved on. He goes on and says, later, I heard the lovely lady giving the same type of word to a different person. Okay, I reasoned, we can't all be getting free houses. God loves realtors too. He believes in selling houses, not just giving them away. I pulled the woman aside later and talked about my observation of free house words. In conversation, I discovered that her husband of 30-some years had left her and she was in a difficult position with her finances and her home. She was longing for a debt-free house and kept seeing the possibility on other people from the place of her own need and longing. That's not prophecy, that's projection. So what projection is the forecast of a future situation based on the knowledge of a present one. Prophetic projection in a negative sense is when we overlay our own circumstances, good or bad, over someone else's life situation. Chris Vallotton compares it to seeing the world and others through scratches or obstructions on the lens of your glasses. Your personal situations, experiences, and ideas affect how you see. None of us are immune to that, but we can be aware when we are going through something and be careful not to project our stuff onto someone else, even if it is well-intentioned. It's easy to think that a word that comes from my love for the person must be a prophetic word delivered in love. As in the case mentioned earlier about the free houses, couldn't that be considered doing unto others as you would have them do unto you? That's the law of love, and we are to prophesy from love, right? But prophecy must come from God's love for that person and not just mine. I must be mature enough in the prophetic to know the difference, or I will hurt people with my wishes shaped as prophecies. Prophecies that are not fulfilled shatters hopes and damages faith. We cause people to despise and disbelieve prophetic words when we prophesy from the desires of our own soul, even if the words are well-intentioned. Practice maturity and true love in this matter. Don't speak into issues where you have a strong self-interest or a preconceived idea. Recuse yourself from prophetic ministry when you have self-interest or when the situation might mirror too closely to your own. At the very least, give a strong disclaimer, admitting how your word may be colored by your own desire for them, and request that the receiver judge more carefully. Healthy prophetic ministry avoids any area that is self-seeking, because prophecy does not seek its own. If you like this video, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok under Carl and Sarita.